6, 7, 8. Say 1, 2, 3, 4. Occupation no more. 5, 6, 7, 8. Israel is a terrorist state. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, the big march is coming up behind you now, and I think we need to show them that you're just as loud as the march was, okay? So when I say free, free, I want you to say, and I want you to really say, Palestine, okay? Free, free! Palestine!
Guys, let's start a bit lower. We'll start lower and then we'll go. Shabab, what do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it? What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
The British government and the Israeli government, it is not directed against the Jewish community here in Britain, who bear no responsibility for what Israel is doing. Our cause is winning. We welcome the ceasefire, but let no one think that the ceasefire means peace. Peace requires justice, and justice requires addressing more than 70 years of dispossession, more than 50 years of occupation. Justice means ending the occupation of the West Bank. It means lifting the siege of Gaza. It means ending the ethnic cleansing in Jerusalem. It means respecting Al-Aqsa. It means respecting the right of the refugees to return to their homeland. Now, we hear a lot in the media about this is all on the one hand, on the other hand, and it's all about terrorism. Let's remember three things. One, there is no equivalence between the oppressed and the oppressor. Second, there is no terrorism greater than imperialism and colonialism. And thirdly, the oppressed Palestinian people have the right to resist the occupation. I am proud, brothers and sisters, that my union supports boycott, divestment and sanctions, supports Palestine solidarity, and joined with the rest of the TUC in recognising last year that Israel operates an apartheid system in the occupied territories, and that must be brought to an end. Brothers and sisters, we have a message for the British government. It is stop arms sales to Israel, apply sanctions until Israel comes with an international law, and recognise the Palestinian state. And I have a message for the Labour Party too. Wake up! Let us hear your voice in support of the Palestinians. Let us get back to the day not so long ago when the leader of the Labour Party would be proud to stand on this stage. Brothers and sisters, we are risen. Let's not go back to sleep. Stay risen. Freedom for Palestine.
Why did Joe Biden change his mind? He changed his mind because there was a general strike in Palestine. That's what changed his mind. He changed his mind because people were on the streets. That's what changed his mind. And we are saying to our government that you must stop supporting Israel. You must stop supporting Biden's policy in Israel. You must stop arming Israel. And we are saying to Boris Johnson, as we are saying to Keir Starmer, Labour opposition, what a pathetic opposition it has been on this question. We are saying you have to stand up for Palestine, for justice. One final point I would like to make. Never underestimate the importance of marching and demonstrating and building a movement. That is what we are trying to do here. And in Britain, we have built a mass movement of Muslims, of socialists, of campaigners, of trade unionists. We will continue to do this. So solidarity to the people of Palestine, solidarity to you all, and keep fighting. Thank you very much.
Palestinian people, I salute their courage in standing up yet again against this oppressor. I also send my condolences to all those families who've lost loved ones in Gaza, all those parents who've lost their children. Let's make this absolutely clear. This was a war crime. This conflict was initiated by Netanyahu in order to preserve his power, but also to keep him out of prison. So let us all pledge that one day Netanyahu will be in prison. It will not be for corruption. It will be for the war crimes perpetrated on the Palestinian people throughout his regime. I say this, yes, a ceasefire has been negotiated and we welcome a ceasefire. But let's be clear, there will be no ceasefire in our campaign to boycott, disinvest and sanction the Israeli apartheid state. The message is clear. The message is clear. We will not cease our campaign in solidarity until there is justice. So yes, let's make it clear. No justice, no peace. Solidarity.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Our next speaker is an anti-war campaigner. He's representing the Cordoba Foundation, which he founded. Please make some noise for Dr. Anas Al-Takriti.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Brothers, sisters, comrades, friends, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you all. I have three messages. The first, the Palestinians have perfectly illustrated the concept of show, don't tell. The Palestinians in Sheikh Jarrah showed us and showed the entire world the ugly face, but the real face of occupation. The people of Al-Aqsa and Jerusalem showed us and the entire world the meaning of dignity and of honor. The people of Gaza showed us and showed the entire world the true meaning of resilience, courage, and sacrifice. The second message is that whilst today we feel jubilant, we feel uplifted by what the Palestinians did and what they showed the world, this is not the time to stop. Let's not be under any illusion. The occupation still stands. Gaza is still under siege. And the Israeli state is continuing with its inhumane, brutal war crimes every single day. My dear brothers and sisters, we cannot rest, and we mustn't rest because the Palestinians cannot rest. We mustn't let up because the Palestinians will not and cannot let up. And we cannot stop because the Palestinians cannot stop. And the third and final message to Boris Johnson and his government, and to virtually every single party that sits in Parliament. We must, here in London, we must own up to our historical responsibility in finding this crisis, in the calamities that has befallen the Palestinian people and the entire Middle Eastern region as a result of what happened here more than 100 years ago. We must stop our assistance and succor to the apartheid state of Israel. And last but not least, we saw what happened in Palestine. We saw who stood up for the brutality and crimes of the Israelis. It is churlish and immature of the British government to disengage and not talk to the real people on the ground who are leading the Palestinian people. Every single Palestinian faction, including the resistance, represents Palestine and the Palestinian struggle, and they must re-enter into the political fold. Otherwise, we, here in Britain, the British government and the entire world will be deemed absolutely irrelevant. Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
I can't hear you. We said free, free. Free, free. Free, free. Free, free. All right, now our next speaker is the General Secretary of CND, the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. Make some noise for Kate Hudson.
Thank you very much. Today we mourn the loss of all those lives lost, brutally killed in these attacks on the Palestinian people. And we also celebrate the resistance of the Palestinian people, their courage and their determination to end Israeli apartheid, to end the occupation, and to free Palestine. The military machine of the Israeli state has been stopped. And make no mistake about it, this is a victory for Palestine. Now, these attacks and incursions and ethnic cleansing must stop forever. Let us pay tribute, in particular, to the young people who have given leadership to the struggle in East Jerusalem, and to all the Palestinian communities, wherever they are living, who have refused to be divided and marginalized and defeated by the Israeli state. This is a resurgence of the Palestinian struggle in Palestine, inside Israel, and across the world. The people have stood up to a nuclear-armed state, to one of the most powerful militaries in the world. We will stand alongside you and fight alongside you until freedom is achieved. Long live Palestine! Long live Gaza! Free, free Palestine! Free, free!
Free, free! Free, free! In our thousands, in our millions! In our thousands, in our millions! In our millions, in our billions! Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! 1, 2, 3, 4! 5, 6, 7, 8! Our next speaker is a patron of the Stop the War Coalition, a vocal supporter of the Palestinian cause and a political activist. Make some noise for Salma Yaqub!
He was trying to save his skin. He was trying to manipulate the Israeli elections. But what he didn't count on was the resistance, the resilience, the courage, the bravery, the humanity, the dignity of Palestinians and their allies. Not since 1936 have we seen the divided and dispossessed Palestinians rise up with the unity they have shown in the last few weeks. This is not a new violence. The Palestinians have faced dispossession since 1917, and it began right here in London. And right now, we in London are saying we are not going to be silenced. We are with the Palestinian people. The Intifada, the uprising, is not just in Gaza, in the West Bank, in occupied territories. It is happening here in London, in Birmingham, in Brighton, in Washington, in Australia, and around the world. I'm here to say, yes, the Palestinians are victims. I don't need to tell anybody here about the dismembership of the children, the killing, the torture, the murder, innocent lives wrecked, ruined. But what I want to say, the silver lining in the horrors that we see now, that we can't pretend are not happening with the social media that we have, that Palestinians have revived us. We too have been silenced in the heart of so-called democracy.
هذا أقل شيء نحن نقدر نعمله بالغربة، يعني ما بإيدنا شيء، والحمد لله قضية إن شاء الله منا لأولادنا ولأولاد أولادنا إنه يقدروا يحملوا هذا الحمل، لأنه القضية الفلسطينية منا هينة، وإن شاء الله الشعوب العربية كافة بجميع الطوائف إنه يوقفوا ويتضامنوا مع أخواننا بفلسطين. شكرا لكم.
So my name is Russell Child. I'm from London in the UK, and I'm here to bear witness to the genocide of the Palestinian people, to the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people, and the British government have to know that they must stop selling arms to Israel. They must stop providing cover to the criminal enterprise that is the state of Israel, that is oppressing and exploiting the Palestinian people.
My name's Ilyas. I'm from Syria, and I'm here to support the rights of the Palestinians from the Israel terrorist occupiers.
Lizzie Allen, I'm from London, and I'm here to protest against Israeli treatment of Palestinians. I visited Palestine a couple of years ago, and I opened my eyes as to what Palestinians have to live under, and I was really shocked, and it has to end, and the West has to do something.
Thank you for your great and influential contribution in this important battle against the occupation. Congratulations to you all for the defeat of the occupation forces from Gaza without achieving any of its goals, except for the destruction and killing of civilians and the demolition of homes and residential buildings, factories, health centers, and even streets. I thank you all for your contribution in keeping the morale of our people in Palestine high as they continue their steadfast resistance against the illegal occupation. As a Palestinian, dear brothers, sisters, comrades, and as one of the organizers of this great demonstration, I sincerely thank you for your support. Your efforts are highly appreciated by our people in Palestine. On behalf of all of you, I would like to thank Gaza and the legitimate lawful resistance movement in all the occupied Palestinian land, which proved to be the soul
and legitimate representative of the Palestinians wherever they are. Gaza, Gaza, Gaza. Long live Gaza. Gaza, Gaza, Gaza. Long live Gaza. Gaza, Gaza, Gaza.
Gaza, Gaza, Gaza.
Dear friends, comrades, after the scenes that we have seen over the course of the 11 days of Israeli terrorism, killing and destruction, which were met by resilience, resistance, and the great and unique sacrifice by our people in Gaza and all Palestine. It is time for the world to respect the choice of the Palestinian people and to seize the negative sentiment toward the Palestinian resistance factions that are striving for freedom, justice, and lasting peace in the region. It is also high time for the world to recognize the root of the problem in Palestine and to take real and practical steps to end the occupation. We as Palestinians abroad, along with all the free people of the world and all of the solidarity organizers and organizations, will continue our movement and will double our efforts to mobilize the popular masses in support of justice and freedom. We will seek to put more pressure on the occupation state and the countries that support it until true justice and freedom is achieved for Palestinian people. Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Gaza, Gaza, Gaza! Thank you, Gaza! Gaza, Gaza, Gaza! Long live Gaza!
Gaza, 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 Gaza! Our next speaker has been one of the most important anti-war voices for decades. He has never wavered in his support for the Palestinian people. Brothers, sisters, comrades, friends, please give a big warm welcome to writer, broadcaster, activist and legend Tariq Ali.
And that the latest events in Jerusalem, the ethnic cleansing that has taken place in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, is nothing new. It's extremely important to understand that the bombing of Gaza and the ceasefire is nothing new. These things have happened 3 or 4 times before. And the first intifada, the second intifada, the general strike of last week, what looks like a new intifada, we have to pay tribute to the grassroots Palestinians, the people young and old who poured out onto the streets of Jerusalem and Gaza, who said enough, no more, and pushed their leaderships forward. That is what we depend on. People of your generation, a young generation now marching yet again to free Palestine. So it's important to understand that what we are seeing in Palestine, the occupied areas and historic Palestine, is yet another attempt by the Zionist governments of Israel, whether it's Netanyahu or whether it's some other Yahoo, I don't care. They've been doing this since 1948. It has been a continuous Nakba, decade after decade, an attempt to drive the Palestinian people out of their territories, to get more settlers in from Brooklyn, settlers who are semi-fascists, who chant slogans denouncing the Arab race, who have learnt nothing from what happened to them in Europe. Nothing. And if they say, they talk a lot about saying all those marching for Palestine are anti-Semites. This, of course, isn't true. But I'll tell you something. and they don't like hearing it. Every time they bomb Gaza, every time they attack Jerusalem, that is what creates anti-Semitism. Stop it! Stop the occupation! Stop the bombings! And the casual anti-Semitism will soon disappear. The last thing I want to say to you is the global solidarity we have seen has been amazing. So thank you to the dockers in Italy, in Livorno and Naples. I'm just finishing, okay, last sentence. Thank you to the dockers in Livorno and Naples who refuse to load weapons on Israeli ships. Thank you to the representative of the Bolivian government in the United Nations Security Council who read out a list of the Palestinian dead and said to the Security Council, for 70 years you have watched and done nothing to help the Palestinians. So solidarity with you, and we will march as long as necessary till the Palestinian people are free.
What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it?
And I am so pleased to be here with all of you today. I've been here marching with trades unionists in solidarity with Palestine, just as I was pleased to be on the demonstration last week. Last week I said, none of us is an island, none of us are free unless all of us are free. And I tell you, the movement saying that is growing stronger and stronger all the time. Our country had the biggest anti-apartheid movement in the world outside South Africa, and you can see the growth of such a broad Palestine solidarity campaign here today. Trades unionists who are here in solidarity with the general strike in Palestine this week. We are here calling out for justice. We are here calling out against the evictions in Sheikh Jarrah, the incursions into Alaska. We are calling on our government to act, even to act on its own policies, as Baroness Varsi said this week. We are here for justice. We are here for Palestine. We are here from many backgrounds, and we are united in our diversity against all discrimination, against all racism and sexism, against all forms of Islamophobia, against all forms of anti-Semitism. And the banner I marched with today, had the TUC logo, and it had the logos of 15 major unions in this country. And I want you to cheer for those unions. The four biggest unions, Unison, Unite, GMB and my own NEU. The three railway unions, ASLEF, RMT and TSSA. The biggest civil service union, the PCS. The post office union, the CWU. The University Union, the UCU, the Fire Brigades Union who took action for Palestine, the Prison Officers Union, the Actors Union Equity, the Bakers Union and the United Road Transport Union. We are all here. We are mourning for the hundreds who died in Gaza, the West Bank and Israel, and we are so pleased that the bombs and the guns have fallen silent. But in that silence of arms, we must cry out all the louder for justice. It is only justice that can secure peace. It is justice that the international community must press for. It's justice that the UK government must press for. And justice means an end to the evictions in Sheikh Jarrah, an end to the incursions, an end to the occupation, an end to the illegal settlements. And we have to spread that voice louder and louder in our universities, in our churches, our synagogues and mosques, in our communities. Join the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Build a movement for justice. Free, free Palestine.
Free,
There is no hope. That Israel has too many friends, too many allies, and too many defenders.
tree had people who sang about hanging Nelson Mandela. Once upon a time, our Prime Minister called them a terrorist. Once upon a time...
The King said that peace must be more than an absence of conflict. Peace must be the presence of justice. We welcome the ceasefire announcement on Thursday night, but that alone will not mean justice. Not if the collective punishment of the people of Gaza continues as it has done for 14 years. Not if the continued brutality of the Israeli occupation that's lasted more than 50 years continues. Not if Palestinians have to see their homes demolished and stolen by Israeli settlers day in, day out. Not if Palestinian children continue to be tried in military courts in a language that most of them don't understand. Not if Israelis and Palestinians face this situation. The reality is we need to see an end to the situation that we've seen for so long. And to achieve a long-lasting peace, to achieve the long-lasting peace that we all want for all Palestinians and all Israeli people, we need to end the underlying injustices. That means demanding that Israel ends the blockade of Gaza. That means demanding... That means demanding that Israel ends its illegal occupation of Palestine. That means demanding that the Palestinian people stop being treated like second-class citizens in Israel itself. Because even when the bombs aren't dropping, the inhumanity, the suffering, the bloodshed, the loss continues day in, day out. That's the reality that the Palestinian people face. So we must continue to speak out. We must continue to demand justice. We must continue to demand all of these things. And that means that we here in Britain make demands of the British government. How can the British government say they're arguing for peace when they're arming the Israeli state? So we must demand that the British government stops all arms sales to Israel. We must demand that the British government imposes sanctions on Israel for its repeated violations of international law. We must demand that the British government recognises Palestine. Our parliament voted to recognise the state of Palestine in 2014, and it needs to happen now. Palestine has the right to exist. Palestine has the right to exist, and Palestine will exist. So let's step up the push for peace. Let's step up the push for justice, and let's step up the peace. Let's step up the push for a free Palestine. Palestine will exist because Palestine has the right to exist. Thank you very much.
1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Julian Assange should be here with you, but he cannot be here because he is 11 miles from where we are standing now in a 9 square meter metal box. A political prisoner in Belmarsh prison, imprisoned for WikiLeaks publications. I wish he could see this crowd of people like him who give a damn. Of people whose sense of empathy and solidarity prevents them from remaining silent. Julian is imprisoned right now because the United States wants to extradite him over publication publications that exposed war crimes in Iraq, torture in Guantanamo Bay, and the Israeli government's policies in Palestine. He is charged with publishing evidence of the Israeli military's policy of using disproportionate force against civilian areas. The Israeli government's strategy of keeping Gaza on the brink of economic collapse and humanitarian disaster. The concrete ways by which the United States undermines UN investigations and threatens officials of the International Criminal Court to shield the Israeli government from scrutiny. Julian faces a 175-year-long sentence because of these publications. He is paying with his freedom and maybe his life. Julian published the words spoken by the Israeli government's officials behind closed doors, words that the Israeli military materializes in the form of airstrikes that kill innocent men, women, and children. The victims know because they live and die through it, but the rest of the world relies on what it's told. Keeping knowledge subjugated is what governments do to control public perception. Public perception shapes our understanding of what is true and what is possible. That is why the IDF bombed the building where Al Jazeera and AP were housed, and that is why the US is imprisoning Julian Assange in a UK jail, to hamper our understanding and to prevent us from acting on that knowledge. To defend our right to know is to defend our right to shape our own destiny, our right to expose policies that kill innocents, our right to force accountability.
All right. Right, now for our next speaker. He's a journalist and he's director of the Middle East Monitor. Make some noise for Dawood Abdullah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Palestine is back. Palestine is back on the international agenda. The apartheid regime tried to convince us, they convinced the normalizers, that Palestine is no longer important and that the real problem in the Middle East is Iran. We say no, Palestine is the problem of the region, and until it is solved, there will be no peace in the region. They wanted us to believe that the people in the 1948 territories had lost their identity. They never did, and they never will. They will remain Palestinians forever and ever.
You did last time, you did. I can't phone you last time.
And they will not accept your ethnic cleansing in Sheikh Jarrah, in Haifa, or in Lid. They refuse, you see, to accept subservience to the apartheid regime.
I'm a big fan of that.
They say no more to discrimination, no more to racism, no more to segregation in their homeland.
Yeah, Assad, then Zara, then Glenn second, and then Samaya after.
The last 11 days has proven to us that the Palestinian people are one wherever they are. In Palestine of 48, in the diaspora, in Gaza, in the West Bank, they are one people, one history, one cause, one destiny. And wherever they were, they want justice, they want freedom. They will not wait any longer. They cannot wait any longer. They will not wait for the UN. They will not wait for the EU. They will not wait for Washington. They will not wait for your negotiations, your deceptive negotiations. They refuse to wait for another 30 years of negotiations. And why should they wait when they see the apartheid regime crumbling before their eyes? The politicians are in disarray. The army is running away. They're afraid to go into Gaza. So why should they wait? Freedom is near. Freedom is near. It is nearer than ever. Return is nearer than ever. Freedom for all Palestine. Return for all Palestinians. Thank you.
Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. My name is Liam Mohammed and I'm a 20-year-old British Palestinian. Now they used to say that the elderly will die and the young will forget. I stand in front of you today as evidence that we will never forget. Their main target has always been to make us forget it, to disattach us from it. But 73 years later, we tell them that we still resist. We have not forgotten, and we will be the generation to return to a free Palestine. 73 years ago, in 1948, my family were forced and driven out of Haifa in Palestine, uprooted from their own land and from their own home. Today, I'm a third-generation Palestinian, still being affected by the Nakba, our ongoing catastrophe. I am the diaspora. I am a proud daughter of a Palestinian refugee from Lebanon. And a proud granddaughter of grandparents who are older than so-called Israel, which is nothing.
Is it going to be after now?
So-called Israel, which is nothing but a settler colonial apartheid state founded on the illegal occupation of Palestine. For my ancestors, I will continue the fight until I no longer have to visit my family in a refugee camp where they are denied not only the right of return, but basic human rights. Until I can gift my grandparents a free Palestine. And until all Palestinians and Muslims around the world can freely visit Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem, the capital of Palestine. Palestine is a wound in our hearts that has never stopped bleeding. 73 years later, we saw Palestinian families still being forced and expelled from their homes in Sheikh Jarrah, still being massacred and wiped out in Gaza, and Western leaders still continuing to fail in their response to Israel's terror over the Palestinians. We will no longer tolerate Downing Street silence to Israel's continued unlawful crimes. It's about time that they are held accountable. It is time to suspend arms sales to Israel. It is time for them to sanction Israel for its continuous violations of international law. And it is time for them to speak up and demand an end to Israel's illegal settlements, the illegal occupation, and an end on the siege of Gaza. Enough is enough. Yes, the ceasefire has been called and the bombs have stopped, but our Palestinian tragedy has not ended. Enough is enough. Palestinians deserve more than not to die. We deserve to live free. In our thousands, in our millions. In our thousands, in our millions. In our thousands, in our millions. That is why we will continue boycotting, protesting, and educating. Nobody will ever silence us. So together, let's raise our voices louder than ever for a free Palestine, free, 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 free.
Friends,
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I bring you some good news. I am the 31st and last speaker at this rally. Thank you for coming and braving the rain. Thank you for your support and solidarity for the people of Palestine. And can I just say, it's a complete honour and a privilege to follow what the wonderful Barnaby Rain just said to us all. Because Barnaby spoke the truth. We are here in solidarity with the people under occupation and under oppression. We reject racism in any form whatsoever. Be it anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, far-right racism, or any other form of racism. Racism is designed to divide and weaken. Unity strengthens us. Solidarity strengthens us. Mobilization strengthens us. And so, whilst we recognize the achievement in there being a ceasefire now in Gaza, West Bank, and all the others, it is only a ceasefire. The issues that have to be addressed are the big ones. But I just say this, had there not been the global demonstrations of the past 2 weeks, had there not been demonstrations in so many towns and cities all over this country, if there had not been that wonderful global map of outpourings around the world in solidarity with the Palestinian people, I do not believe the ceasefire would have happened at all. We mourn the deaths of all those that have been killed in the past 2 weeks, whoever they are. A Palestinian child, an Israeli child, a Palestinian refugee, an aid worker, anyone who's been killed should not have lost their lives. Their homes should not have been destroyed. And children should not grow up having seen their own home demolished by a bomb dropped from the safety of thousands of feet up. The occupation is the issue. The occupation of the West Bank, the siege of Gaza, they are the issues. And so whilst the ceasefire is obviously a step forward, unless the fundamental issues are addressed, we will be here again. But I simply say this to those naysayers around the world. We, many of us in this field today, in this park today, have been on many demonstrations in support of the Palestinian people over many years. And we will be here as long as it takes until the Palestinian people are free. We will never give up on the Palestinian people. We will never go away from the Palestinian people and their cause. And I just say this, I must apologize, I was not marching on the march today from the embankment to here. And I'll explain why. Because we were hosting through the Project for Justice and Peace something we've been organizing for several months, and that is a Global Refugee Voices Conference online. Because we wanted to give voice to the voiceless, the 80 million people on this planet with no home to call their own, no security of their future. They are internally displaced or external refugees. They're dying in the seas around Europe. They're dying on the borders of many countries, and they're living terrible lives. 80 million people, the largest ever in recorded history. So let's not celebrate 70 years since the 1951 convention. Let's determine to create a world where refugees can live in security and safety. And not be demonized by our Home Secretary who wants to send the Navy into the Channel. And amongst those refugees are Palestinian people. Palestinian people removed from their homes in 1948, made their homes in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Syria, in Iraq, in many countries all over the region, and the huge Palestinian diaspora. I've met elderly Palestinian people in Sabra Jadila who've spent their whole lives since the year before I was born in a refugee camp. Never forget the rights and plight of the refugees as well. And so it also means in any demonstration, what are we going to do politically? We're here, of course, in support of Palestine and the Palestinian people, but we also need to make demands on our own government. On this week in Parliament, I asked a question of Mr. James Cleverly. That's his name, it really is. About British arms sales and British military cooperation with Israel. I asked him if he could assure me that no weapons supplied by Britain were being used to bomb Gaza. He could not give me that assurance. He could not answer my question. He would not answer my question on the nature of the security relationship between Britain and Israel. So I say this, from this demonstration today here in Hyde Park, we call for the end of all arms supplies to Israel. In order to save life and help to bring about a peace. So we call, of course, for the end of the occupation. We call, of course, for the end of the siege of Gaza. I've had the privilege of visiting Gaza on a number of occasions. Nothing has made me more angry or more sad than meeting young people, well-educated, very ambitious, wonderful young people who've been educated at UN schools and so on, unable to work, unable to travel, living their lives vicariously through a computer screen, under siege. Young people on the West Bank, harassed at checkpoints 24/7, unable to go anywhere without going through a checkpoint. If this was in the West Bank, we'd have had 3 or 4 checkpoints between the embankment and Hyde Park. That is what life is like under occupation. So, we call for the end of the occupation, an end to the siege of Gaza, and since Israel has settled 500,000 people on the West Bank, the settlement policy must end. Sheikh Jarrah is an example and a symptom. It's not the only place, sadly. And so it is about ending all the settlements as well, so the Palestinian people can get their peace, their land and their country back. That means, as I put forward in the general election of December 2019, that we would campaign for, and I would be proud to implement, a policy of full recognition for the state of Palestine. So, as I am concluding this rally, thank you for coming. Thank you for your solidarity. We're going to be seeing a lot of each other at future marches and demonstrations. Big thank you. Big thank you to PSC, to Stop the War, to CND, to all the groups that have come together, MAB and everybody else today. Thank you very much. Hyde Park.